Hi crafty friends, it's Donna here, and today I have for you 2 cards and also 2 lots of exciting news. Let's start with the first exciting news. And you can see just appearing in the bottom corner that for 2025 I'm on the Hero Arts, a blog named Hero Design team, which means I get to play along with all of the challenges, and I'm really looking forward to that. The February challenge is called Build Me Up Buttercup, and it's a challenge to use florals. If ever a challenge was designed exactly for me, this is it. And I used a couple of techniques for this card that I thought might be worth sharing, and so I'm making a video. I have a stamp set and a set of layering stencils called Wild Columbine, and I'm going to use those to make an all-over panel. Before I start, I'm going to make a couple of masks, and here's how I did them. I'm putting together 2 pieces of post-it tape so that it's big enough for my image, and then I'm going to stamp in a really pale colour. I don't want to smudge a dark ink when I do the ink blending. What you see here is a combination of the Ink On 3 ink that I stamped with and the residual black ink from my previous stampings, which mean that I can see enough to be able to cut out that mask. We'll start the blending and then we'll use the mask in just a little bit. I'll put all of the colours that I use on the screen, and also I will link to everything in the box below the video. So if you're wondering about what colours I use, there should be a good reference there. This stencil set has 4 different layers, 2 for the flowers and 2 for the leaves. I'm only going to show you the blending for the first of these to show you how I've lined up my stencils, and then after that we'll jump through it much more quickly. One thing that I will say is that if you are going to combine a stencil with a stamp, make sure that you use the correct side of the stencil, or it won't line up with your stamp at all. Ask me how I know. This set of stencils lines up exactly with each other, and there are also 4 little squares in the corner that you can use to line them up. I have a sticky mat in my MISTI, and I'm making sure that the paper and the stencil are well stuck to that mat. I've put a little bit of low-tack tape along one edge of the stencil. And when it's time to change stencil, I'm lining the stencils up, moving the tape to the top piece, lifting up the hinge, and then sliding out the lower piece, and then using the hinge to put my next stencil in place. Honestly, for this exact stencil, it's really quite obvious where things go, and I don't know that it's entirely necessary. But for other stencils where it's not so clear cut, it's a great way to just keep things in line. I'm using 2 colours for each of the flowers and the same 2 greens, green apple and pine, for all of the leaves across both cards. This top layer stencil that I'm just putting down now has the lowlights for the leaves and also the flower centres. I haven't bothered masking off the individual areas, even though I'm using 2 colours, because there's enough distance between the 2 and my brushes are small enough that I can just work around that. Once that first flower is complete, I'm going to add my mask on top and then start again with my stencil, working my way through with different colours for each of the flowers. I'm going to leave in a little bit of the footage to show you the colours I used, but we're going to go through fairly quickly now. But one thing I would note is that I didn't clean my stencil between the flowers, and so the colours that I've got blend really well because they're a mix of the new colour and a little bit of residual from the old colour. You can see that this cotton candy ink looks much more like an apricot than the true colour. I've left in a little bit of footage later on to show you that difference with the blues. The only time that I cleaned the stencil was before I blended with yellow ink again, towards the end of the blending. At the start of the video I mentioned that I had 2 lots of exciting news. And the second one is that my husband and I are going to be moving back to Japan. We've lived in Japan previously from 2018 to 2023, and as of July of 2025 we'll be back there for a few more years, and we're really excited about the move, although I'm going to have to do some serious culling in my craft space. We're going to be living and working on the outskirts of Tokyo. It's quite a nice area. We've lived there before, and although the image of Tokyo that a lot of people have is of high-rise buildings, where we will live there are lots of market gardens, suburban houses and 2 rivers flowing through. I made a mistake here. I used the wrong colour brush. I used my green brush, and so instead of hot pink, I got a more muted red. I'm not mad about it. You can see the difference that not cleaning your stencil makes when it comes to these next blues. I sampled the colours of the inks on that little piece of scrap paper, but by the time I blended purple into it, the blue that I got was quite different. You may notice too that for each flower, I'm picking up the stencil and the paper and moving it to a different place on my MISTI. That's so both the stencil and the paper can be in good contact with the sticky mat. I am working my way up the card left and right, working in something of a rainbow order. It's been a busy couple of months and I haven't put out very many videos lately, but we have several hundred new followers on the channel. I'm so happy to welcome you here and I hope you enjoy it. Just so that you get a bit of a sense of who I am. As well as being a card maker, I'm a musician. I play oboe and piano. I'm a mad keen speed puzzling fan. That is, taking all of the relaxing things about jigsaw puzzles and throwing them out the window and doing timed puzzles. I love languages and I really enjoy studying Japanese, and currently I'm actually studying to become a translator and an interpreter, although I have been a teacher of Japanese for many, many years. I live in the southeast of Australia. It's often green, we have beautiful rolling hills, and we have sheep and vegetables here, which keeps me very busy. And with that, we have the final panel. This is big enough for 2 cards, and so I'm going to cut that in half. You can see that there are a couple of places that I haven't covered. I could have bunched everything up a little bit closer, but I'm going to cover those little holes in the middle with my sentiments, and I'm going to cut the panel slightly smaller than my page, and that will minimize the amount of white on the corners. I'm going to use the sentiment from the same stamp set. This one I've chosen is Happy Birthday to You, and I very carefully heat embossed that twice in black before completely changing my mind and deciding to do it with black on white. For this card, I've left that panel as is and added a coordinating border and my sentiment, but I would like to heat emboss onto the next card. Because dye inks sink into the paper, you need to be very careful that the paper's dry. And I tested that by running a powder tool over my page and then just sprinkling a little bit of embossing powder. No, let's be real, that was a lot of embossing powder all over the page. And it stuck everywhere. So then, my options were to let it dry or to make it dry, which I did with my heat tool. I knew that I'd dried the page enough when none of the powder stuck to the panel. I'm going to use this Hero Arts gold embossing powder to emboss each of these flowers. The first one's a very simple matter of lining it up and embossing, but from the next one I'm going to need those masks again. At every stage I'm just using a powder tool to make sure I don't get that gold powder anywhere because I'm touching the card a lot. Now our mask is a little bit sticky on the back, so if I peel it off and then sprinkle my embossing powder on, there's a chance that I'll get extra powder where a little bit of residual stickiness is left behind. And so I'm sprinkling the powder and then removing the mask. It does mean that the mask has a little bit of powder on it that I keep having to wipe off, but that's better than having extra powder on my card. I'm bringing in a little bit of clear plastic, which is hard to see on camera, but instead of cleaning my stamp, which is a little bit sticky, I'm just positioning it directly over that plastic, then closing the lid to pick up the stamp before removing that plastic, which is just old packaging, to do my stamping. And I'm just repeating that process over and over, masking, stamping, sprinkling the embossing powder, shaking it all off, and then removing the mask and heat setting that until I've gone right to the corner. I really like the look that this gave to these Columbines. I'm going to construct the second card in the same way as the first, only this time I'll use a horizontal layout. I've got a bit of paper from my stash, which I'm going to use to border this, and I'm using that same sentiment stamped in black on white paper and then framed in black. I hope that you've enjoyed these cards. I really enjoyed making them, and I love the patterned paper look that they give. Don't forget that you can head over to a blog named Hero and join in with the challenge, and there's actually a $50 voucher that you can win. So why not give it a go? At the very least, you'll get to play with flower stamps, and that's all good. I've been busy in the craft room this week editing videos, and so hopefully we're back on track with putting videos out and just exploring different crafty techniques. Feel free to like or subscribe if you're interested in any of those adventures, and if not, that's fine. I'm going to be back soon with another video anyway. Bye for now.